Assassin's Creed Origins is a really interesting game to talk about. This is because if you know the history of the series and where it was at the time of its release, they had taken their first break from annual releases, and this is because the series was going through a bit of a slump at the time. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, the game before this, really didn't sell that great in context of the entire series. So Ubisoft decided to take a break, spend time to kind of redo and rework their formula, and try to come out the gate with something new. And what they came out with was a Witcher Light, I guess you could call it, and that decision has led to what the modern Assassin's Creed game is. And for better or worse, it seems like it's going to stay that way. But at the time of its release, I have to be honest, I wasn't crazy about this game. But over time, with me coming back to the game and replaying it, I really grew to love this game, and honestly, it's become one of my favorite in the series, probably in my top 3. This is because it has a extremely immersive world that I think is fantastic to explore. It handles an extremely mature story about loss and grief and how relationships can fade over time. And while I wasn't huge on the change when it happened, I now actually think this is the perfect blend of taking the series formula and turning it into something new, but also keeping some tentpoles of what made the series interesting in the first place. Hi everybody. This is Solid Vic, and once again I want to thank you for coming to one of my Assassin's Creed videos. And as always, I want you to remember this is not necessarily a hardcore critique of the video game, but it's more of like if you were sitting with your buddy on a couch and just chatting it up. And so while yes, there will be some very honest critiques and things that I think the game could do better, it's mainly going to be me waxing poetic about the things that I enjoyed about a video game. And if you're into that sort of content, you're here at the right place. The thing that I think I love most about Assassin's Creed Origins is the story. And what I mean by that is the type of story it isn't this huge, crazy, bombastic, globe-trotting experience. It is a very personal story. And so let's talk about Bayek and what makes him special. He's a deeply traditional family man. He's protective of women and children, and all of this really feeds into him being a Medjay. Which is interesting because the Medjay at this point of time are considered from the Old Kingdom. They're kind of a novelty, like Bayek is the only one left. But as you hear Bayek interact with people, you hear the earnestness radiating from every single line that he has. It's something that very few characters ever achieve. And you get these through special moments like when you see Bayek and his son just gazing at the stars and him telling him about him and his mother. But also, he's not afraid to take justice into his own hands. He will be violent and brutal to his enemies when necessary and when he feels like he needs to protect those that can't protect themselves. And a perfect example of this is the Crocodile Priest, who is abusing his subjects, and Bayek doesn't think it's okay, so he steps in and intervenes. I think a good way to sum it up is that Ezio is the person that everybody wanted to be, and I think Bayek is the man that everyone should strive to be. Another example of Bayek just being this man with a heart of gold is when you find a child selling Siwa novelties. They're obviously fake, and Bayek, being from Siwa, can clock it in an instant, but he cheekily tells her he's not going to rat her out and he's going to let her do her thing. I think that speaks to the integrity of Bayek, of he's not going to take away this girl's only way to make an income. Oh, and I have to say, I think this game does have one of the coolest openings with Bayek. It really shows his intensity, especially from the voice actor Abubakar Salim. He absolutely kills it.
We will find you. We will find you in your sleep. Sleep. I never sleep. I just wait in the shadows, and I will kill you all. Everyone who sniffed the air that day in Siwa.
Now, I do want to get into an actual critique I have of the story and the way it's paced. I think the beginning of this game, after the opening cutscene with the Heron, is paced really awkwardly. I think you get to Siwa and then it shows you why Bayek is on his quest for revenge, and it feels very disjointed. Like this could have been put at the beginning and we could have just experienced this in a linear fashion, and it would have probably made a little more sense. And I can't help but wonder if sometimes storytellers want to do this because maybe they don't believe in their story all the way, or they think they can make it even more interesting by messing with the chronology of how we're experiencing it. And I don't think that's something they need to do. I think the story is strong enough. I think we could have seen the death of Bayek's child and the ransacking of Siwa at the beginning, and that would have given us necessary context and would have made everything equally as strong. Also, this all happens in the opening 3 hours, so it doesn't really add any amazing context or give some insane revelation. Now, one of the things I think this game does is have a simple story and a complex world. Bayek is trying to get revenge for the death of his son. But he's in this incredibly complex world with the Ptolemies and Rome encroaching in and colonizing Egypt. And you get a lot of this flavor when you're dealing with Cleopatra. The political machinations of the time mean that Cleopatra are just using Bayek as a means to an end. It teaches Bayek and Aya that they must operate outside the orders of rulers and kings for the betterment of mankind. This is because political motivations can change, and honestly, charismatic rulers can convince good people to do bad things for their own selfish reasons. And it really influences that assassins must always work in the shadows for the betterment of mankind. This idea of how the Creed originated and how its tenets rose continues on in the Hidden One DLC. Here's where you see the main tenet of why they don't kill innocents. You also get this really cool moment in that DLC where Bayek and Aya have a coming together once again, and they realize that the Hidden Ones truly will outlive them, and that this fight between good and evil and these two organizations is going to go on much longer than them. And it kind of harkens back to the end of Revelations, where Ezio realizes that his time in this fight is done, but it's going to continue for thousands of years. I love seeing characters acknowledge that the events that they're taking part of are bigger than themselves. Speaking of the assassins being created in this game, I have to mention how great the dinner table scene is with Bayek and his comrades after they're on the outs from Cleopatra.
Ones that walk in the shadows for the people. We are. Something has come of all of this, and it starts right now. We must continue the fight and defend the free will of the people. And no matter how small, our brotherhood is the only hope. And our kingdom needs no crowns. What we believe in, our values, our creed, will unify us.
You get to see the actual formation of the Creed. It's something that I think future games kind of end up shying away from. But this game really doubles down that this is an Assassin's Creed game, and for that, I will always appreciate and love it. Another aspect of this game that I have to bring up is how it approaches a real, honest adult relationship. You often see video game romances and adult relationships in games either be one of two things. They're super light and bubblegummy and happy, or they're incredibly tragic where the loved one gets slaughtered and that's your quest of revenge. This isn't that. This is a game about a husband and wife who were married. They had something extremely tragic happen in their relationship, and that changed the dynamic for them forever, and they could never go back to the way things were. And I think that's something that's really hard to understand on an emotional level until you become an adult and you understand that these things can just happen and that no one's truly at fault. And it's kind of interesting to see how Bayek and Aya deal with that grief. Aya seeks to fill that hole with something more, which is why she clings so hard to Cleopatra and tries to help her build something new. And Bayek really takes the quest for revenge on his shoulders. Now, a complaint I do have is I really think they could have done more to solidify Bayek and Aya's relationship before Kemu's death. At no point do we ever see Bayek, Aya, and Kemu together, functioning as a family unit. I think that would have deeply increased the emotional investment that we have into them as a couple. The other thing is, Assassin's Creed Origins really fails at showing us Aya's perspective. We spend so much time with Bayek and we see him doing so many good things for people that he becomes our boy and we want him to win. And we spend so much little time with Aya understanding her point of view that at the end of the day, it kind of almost makes it feel like she's in the wrong. Like Bayek will worship the ground that she works on and will do anything he can to try to save their relationship, and Aya just wants to check out and go do her own thing. And as an adult, you can understand that that's not how this actually works, is that Aya can never return to how things were. The death of Kemu cut too deeply for her. But we don't get to experience that. This is something that as the player, I'm having to infer. I wish they would have done like I mentioned earlier. Let us get invested into their family dynamic, so that when this sense of loss happens, we feel it too as a player. But overall, I have to give them massive kudos for even tackling this subject this way. The other thing I have to say, the Assassin's targets is something that in the RPG era of Assassin's Creed, they've always really struggled with. As far as me never really feeling like I'm attached to who I'm killing, like it doesn't really matter, it's just another name on a list. I think if they just took a little bit more time to really flesh out these characters, it would have made me care and it would have made me more invested into who I'm killing. One time that I actually thought they did this really well was with the Scarab. You get to see his efforts and his motivations and understand why he's doing it. They kind of touched on it a little bit with the Crocodile, but she mainly just ended up being evil. Now, one thing that I do think they did really well was seeing the ramifications of what these targets were doing. They were important people in society, and the things that they were doing had consequences. So when you kill them, there are ripple effects to that. The biggest one being the Crocodile and how that affects the city that she runs. And you see people there of other social statures have to kind of rise up and try to take over the reins. Or with the Scarab, when you kill him, you see that his son takes it really personally because you just killed his dad. And so you have to wonder, is this going to create that cycle of violence? I love seeing the consequences of characters' actions within the worlds. I almost just wish they would have gone a little bit deeper in it. Now, I want to get to something that they really changed up, which was the gameplay. Before this, Assassin's Creed was more based heavily on animations and things like that, where this game really is the first one where they said, let's change it to hitboxes and honestly make it very kind of influenced by Dark Souls, which nowadays is something that's so done over and over again that it doesn't feel special. But at the time, it did actually have a bit of novelty to it, especially in an Assassin's Creed game. Not only that, but they really doubled down on the RPG influence here with gear score and weapon rarity, and they really dip into special weapon abilities, such as some weapons having fire and some weapons having poison, and shields that will inflict sleep on the player and things like that. They're things that in context of the world, they don't really make sense, and it kind of breaks the verisimilitude, but it makes sense in context of an RPG of you want special equipment that does special abilities. At the end of the day, I dug it. While the game is hitbox focused, I do have to say, the finisher animations are awesome. They get a little samey because you see the exact same ones that are like maybe only 3 or 4 of them throughout your entire playthrough. But I did enjoy seeing Bayek just go ham and bash somebody in the face with a shield before he stabs them in the neck. But the melee does feel extremely tight, and at no point did I ever feel like I was missing hits that I should have connected with, or did I ever feel like I was getting hit in a way that was cheap or that I should have been able to dodge out of the way. Anytime I got hit, I honestly felt like it was my fault for not dodging well enough. And that is the sign of a good and fair combat system, in my opinion. The other thing I'd never really thought I was going to end up doing was really experimenting with different weapon types. I never thought I was going to use the staff because I never had before. I pretty much stayed with daggers and swords and shields, but I really branched out this time around and I had a lot of fun. But of course, I always have to stick with my favorite at the end of the day, which is the good old sword and board, and the occasional sickle sword and shield. This was just the most fun, and it honestly feels like it is what the game was made for. Because with the sword and shield, you have to really utilize your parries. Another really important thing I want to bring up is how phenomenal archery is in this game. The Hunter Bow and the Predator Bow specifically are so OP and honestly broken, but I don't even care. It creates that extremely satisfying feedback loop of I'm nailing headshots with the Hunter Bow, I'm always feeling like a stealthy hunter, and it always feels satisfying. Oh, and I have to say, using the health bar above enemies to make sure that you're landing critical shots to completely kill them was so much fun, and it was a great little way to really note to the player that, hey, you're hitting a critical shot. It also makes sense that Bayek would be so good with the bow because he is a hunter. He was raised on the land. He knows how to use a bow. So it creates a perfect amount of verisimilitude. Also specifically, the Predator Bow functioning almost like a sniper rifle is really kind of unexpected and fun. I always felt like I was nailing things from a faraway distance in a way that was satisfying, almost like you do if you're playing Call of Duty and you're sniping or something like that. Something else that I think is really important to bring up is that I think the game genuinely encourages stealth. You can feel that with how buildings are designed and camps with their shrubbery and things like that. It really encourages you to be able to sneak around, use the hidden blade, use your bows, and to be able to pick off people as quietly as possible. And as somebody who wants more stealth games in the world, I will always be happy with that. And I think that's specifically cool because ancient Egypt is usually a place that I don't really care about. Like, its architecture isn't something that initially grabs me. But the way that everything was designed here actually really engrossed me. I thought it was cool. I liked looking around. I liked climbing around. I liked stealthing around everywhere. And I think that speaks to how well everything is designed, that it was able to get somebody like me who isn't actually interested in this time period as much, invested into the environments. Oh, and a quick aside that I think is always good in these games, I love being able to remove my hood at will, and it was always fun to me as I'm just riding around the world keeping my hood off, but the moment I'm stealthing around, I just flip it back up. Always makes me feel like a badass assassin. Speaking more deeply into what I was just mentioning, before this game, Egypt was not a place that I really cared about as far as a time period or something that I felt like getting invested in. And this game completely changed my mind on that. It made me fall in love with the beauty of Egypt. The geography is just beautiful, from its sun-soaked deserts to green oases to marshy riverlands. I just loved traveling between the areas and seeing all the biodiversity. Something that I really noticed this time around was that they took a lot of inspiration and systems from Far Cry here. And what I mean by that is using animal encounters to make the world feel alive. It happens regularly as you're just riding your horse across the land that you'll come across different animals fighting, whether it be a couple hyenas fighting a crocodile, some hippos attacking some guards, anything like that. It's a little thing that a video game can do to make the world feel like an actual place and not just a video game simulation. It shows that things are going on when you're not around and that the entire world and everything happening doesn't revolve around Bayek. Speaking of the open world design, this game does a really good job of giving you a myriad of things to do that always feel purposeful. Of course, in true Ubisoft fashion, most of the time it is just boxes for you to check off, but that's why I play these games, it's why I like their formulas. But something they do to go above that is every activity you can do feeds into the game economy, whether it be materials to craft with, or money to trade off with, or XP to get more skill points. Everything you do is useful. You never feel like you're wasting your time. And of course, speaking of the world, I have to talk about the side quests of the game. This does what every good RPG should do, which is the side quest should feed back into the greater themes of the game. And that's exactly what this does. The game fleshes out Bayek more as a character and helps show how he cares about people and the downtrodden, and it also speaks to the time period and themes of colonization and things like that. To give a quick example, we have Bayek and his relationship with Tahira, and it's hinted that they had a friendly relationship before the events of the game, and that again helps make the world feel fleshed out. Another great side quest that I have to bring up that shows Bayek's kind-hearted nature is him helping a woman with her fertility ceremony. And this is where we get this amazing segment with Bayek talking about the prayer of the Magi and thinking about his son. Or you have another one where Bayek is just hanging out with an old gladiator and helping him find new work because his body can't really hold up in the gladiator ring anymore. All of these things continue and build out the game in ways that feel organic and purposeful. I think that is the key word here, purposeful development. Another thing about this world that I genuinely love is seeing the difference between Roman and Egyptian cities. It's a fun contrast and it helps kind of dig even deeper into what the political climate of the world is. And you can see how the Egyptian culture is kind of being phased out in certain ways as the Egyptians roll in and invest more into the country. And I do have to say, as a world activity, I love the Colosseums. I love fight clubs and games, as you know from my Assassin's Creed Syndicate video, and I will always be happy if you just give me a big pit to whip some ass in. Now, when it comes to some of the RPG elements and how it feeds into the side quests and things like that, a lot of people have a big problem with this game in that it feels very grindy, and they don't like that story quests are kind of level gated. And in order to complete those level quests, you oftentimes have to complete other side quests to get your XP up to level up so that you can do enough damage to make those quests worthwhile. And that's completely understandable. But for me personally, that never becomes an issue just because of how I play games and specifically RPGs. I love doing every side quest possible before moving on to the main quest, because one, it helps me level up as a player, also it helps me flesh out the world and lets me understand the area and the dynamics that are going on in a region better. And to me, as I said when I was going over side quests, this game does that consistently, so I think it's worth it to do all the side quests. But again, that's just my preference as a player. If you're not a big side quest person, if you would rather just do the golden path, then yeah, you're probably going to have issues with the grindiness or the level gating that this game has. Overall, Assassin's Creed Origins I think is a beautiful game, but it's not perfect. It has some story issues, specifically with Bayek and Aya, that really kind of stuck in my craw at times. And it's interesting considering the context that this game was originally meant to just be about Aya. And the biggest credit I can give to this game is that it took a time period that I previously did not care about at all. It made me fall in love with its rich history. The game also gives us one of the best protagonists in the entire series with Bayek, somebody that I would love to revisit with another game if they ever felt the need to. It also does a magnificent job, in my opinion, setting up the origins of the Creed and giving the reasons of why the Hidden Ones want to stay, well, hidden and operate in secrecy the way that they need to. And of course, it gives a real adult relationship, and it gives the unique perspective of seeing a relationship end when two people just kind of naturally drift apart. It's sad, it's heartbreaking, and it's honest. And for that, I will always love this game. Assassin's Creed Origins, I think, is one of the best of the series, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's even remotely curious. I would even say if you're new to Assassin's Creed and you're kind of wanting to get started in it, maybe start with this one. That way you can play the modern games, because this was the first one and the one that I think arguably does it the best. But as always, guys, that's just my opinion. I'm curious what you guys think about Assassin's Creed Origins. Is this one of your favorite games of the series, or is it one that really didn't gel with you? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from you, and I look forward to having the conversation. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.
May your victories multiply.